Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever Hustle Award brought to you by Startups Magazine. My name is Anne Pocket and I'm the editor, and tonight I will be your host. So first things first, of course we were supposed to be having this in person and unfortunately we weren't able to, but it's still a party, it's still a celebration. So, I don't know if you can see with my background, but we're going to be whooping some Prosecco and cheersing to you all, everyone that applied, was a part of Startups Magazine, judged, won, everyone. I just want to say a massive, you can't really see, cheers. So yeah. Okay, now we have got that out of the way. Yes, so as I was saying, we were supposed to be having this event at the Oval space in Hackney in London, but because of COVID we were unable to. So have no fear, we took the award this year virtual and actually global, because we have a global winner in one of our categories. So I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad you can join us this evening. Let's all have a cheeky little cheers to our winners and to everyone. Tonight we will be starting with a really exciting keynote from the founder of Untitled, Albert, and then I will bring you two different panels, one with our winners and one with our judges, and we'll be discussing everything obviously to do with the awards and the startups who won. I'd just like to say a special thank you to our category sponsors, Avery Law and City Business Library. Avery Law are a redefining boutique law firm for the changing legal marketplace, providing legal services with a focus on corporate, finance, commercial matters in the growth tech sector. They're really suited to startups. The firm fully embraces an innovative tech-enabled, lean and agile model, disrupting the traditional law firms and reinventing the way in which sophisticated and value-driven advice is given to clients. Avery Law has built a substantial reputation in the growth tech space and has accumulated a wealth of experience in assisting entrepreneurs, startups and scale-ups in raising funds and leading on acquisitions over the complexities of a corporate lifestyle. They awarded Breathe Tech, our winner of the best technology product category, a gold package of their new IP Riot service and a year of their new COSEC service, the perfect tool for startups looking to scale. So we will include some more information about these guys on our post-event mailer tomorrow, so I would definitely recommend checking them out. And then City Business Library are a specialist business information and market research service available remotely, and they were the sponsor of the Social Impact Hero category, and they were delighted with the chosen winner. Amanda Patterson, the business research support officer at City Business Library, actually said that she loved to see the intersection of technology and traditional farming supporting and empowering small cocoa growers, and she can already see the great work that they're doing in supporting these farmers with shops in Canada, including her hometown, and they're selling the approved product. So yeah, she was really pleased. And City Business Library has a dedicated service for small businesses. It provides businesses with events, information, expert assistance to help you start and grow your business. So again, we'll include a lot more information about these guys and some links in the post-event mailer tomorrow, but you should definitely check out their Eventbrite page because there's lots of amazing stuff on there. So without further ado, I will stop babbling on and drink my Prosecco. I would like to introduce to your screens the wonderful Albert from Underpin.
Hello.
So Albert, the screen is yours, and I'm excited for your keynote this evening. I will turn up now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And welcome everyone to my keynote. First, like, the Hustle Awards is a really cool thing that I've followed since its inception, because we were kind of, we talked a lot while it was getting started. And I think it's a fantastic initiative. And although this is the first year, I think that it's going to be the first of many brilliant years in doing interesting things. And I hope that my keynote is going to slightly reflect, I guess, why the Hustle Awards were started up. And I'm going to try and not just be like inspirational, go get things done. I want to try and make this quite practical, something you can kind of take away and use in your startup careers, in building businesses, whether you're kind of like a freelance entrepreneur or you're building the next like Uber or Facebook. But yeah, I'm going to jump right in, and if anyone has any questions, you can throw them out there. There might be some types of questions at the end, but hopefully you'll get something from this. So the idea being based around hustling with agility and resilience. I think that the two attributes people often attribute to startup entrepreneurs is this idea about resilience, of basically having doors constantly slammed in their faces and no's constantly shouted at them, and like their idea not quite working and things not being right and it not going well. And like, actually one of the core attributes of doing well is just to be resilient, at the fact that over multiple hurdles and through multiple barriers, it's just not going to be very much fun. And you're going to have times where you're crying in your hands and times where you're incredibly elated, and it's just about persevering through all those things. And this other thing, which is agility, which is, I guess, more what we're talking about today, which is this idea of kind of how do you maneuver within this world. And like, particularly within the startup economy, very rarely do you end up where you thought you would end up when you started. I think that's a really important idea. But I won't go into it too much. And actually, just a final point on that I think that agility is something that's been particularly important of late. Lots of companies have really struggled. And in many senses, we've been very lucky that my company offers online services to freelancers, often working remotely. But in many other ways, it's still required us to make lots of changes, and lots of businesses around us have definitely made quite massive and also quite like incredible changes in order to kind of adapt their businesses to the current times. So a tiny bit about me. I don't want to dwell on who I am and what I do too much, but I'm the CEO and co-founder of Underpin. I started as a ballet dancer at the Royal Ballet School a long time ago now. I quit ballet, I went and did philosophy of science, I kind of found the love of bridging the creative world and the business world, the kind of logic with creativity. I then became a business strategy consultant and public relations consultant as a freelancer. I ran a small media and arts company that helped young and emerging artists get established, and I ran an arts charity which helped disadvantaged and at-risk children. And this was all before starting Underpin. And this all kind of came together to start Underpin in that I guess I really loved solving problems for people, helping people build businesses around their passion. I loved taking these artists who were very passionate about their work, but didn't really know how to build a career out of it, and teaching them how to do that. And that's what Underpin was all about. So while our focus is on freelancers, I think it extends a lot to entrepreneurs. And I definitely work myself with lots of entrepreneurs, and I run lots of entrepreneurial groups to help people build businesses out of what they're doing, to turn that kind of passion into something slightly more substantial. And often that can seem very, very, very boring. Like, a lot of the things we have to do to turn some passion into something kind of something discrete, something quantifiable, is often a series of quite boring admin tasks. So making those things more engaging is a really important part of what I do. And in terms of actual Underpin, what is Underpin? Not the topic of this conversation, but Underpin is basically a system designed to build a business around your craft. Turning passion into business is our tagline. A one-stop solution with all the tools and resources. So basically somewhere where you can go to build your portfolios, your proposals, manage your work, do your invoices, contracts, and our kind of fundamental principle being that we help people build more sustainable, developed careers rather than just kind of focusing on getting, going from gig to gig, going from client to client. How do you start to build sustainability and sustainable growth into a business model, whether you're a freelancer or an entrepreneur? And that's ultimately what we do. So it's about how do you start to generate leads that generate value, and how do you turn those leads into something interesting, and how do you build a business around that? So you take your craft, the thing that you're good at, and you build a business around that. Cool. So jumping into the actual keynote, what I actually want to talk about was the idea of agility and resilience, and basing it around 4 fundamental points that I thought were really interesting. First is the importance of never assuming that you are right. And I think this is something that I come across constantly in my own head as much as I do with other people. This idea that, like, maybe it will work, I still believe it's going in the right direction, And this constant use of the word maybe, like maybe they'll invest, maybe I'll land this client, maybe it'll work in like one more iteration. Maybe if I add this to the product, people will start using it. And I think like, it sounds a bit abrupt, but one of the phrases I've come to say quite a lot is that maybe means no. And that doesn't mean you can't turn a maybe into a yes, in the same way you can't turn a no into a yes from a client. And often your best clients and your best customers come from people who originally were not people you were selling something to, but got to know who you are and learn from. But I think this idea of maybe not being something you lock onto, that if somebody says maybe, it's not in your pipeline, it's not something substantial. You need to be able to describe the things that you've got. So we take an example of investment. I think a lot of people say, well, like, I'm having this conversation and I'm reaching out to these people. I reckon maybe I've got like, let's say I'm raising £100,000. Maybe I've got like £50,000 in the pipeline. Well, if the answer is maybe, then you have nothing in the pipeline. And until you can be substantial about it, then nothing really exists. I know that sounds like a very negative thing, but actually using that mindset allows you to be much more positive and proactive about solving problems when they do present themselves. So rather than saying, maybe I've got it, and then missing it, if you assume that you don't have it, then you're only ever building contingency if the maybe turns into a yes. And if the maybe doesn't turn into the yes, then you have the contingency around it. If you can't describe it, then it doesn't exist. I think this is exactly that same thing of like, who are your customers? Who's buying your service? Well, they're kind of like this person. Well, you need to find out who they are. Who they are, and if you're not able to describe the person that they are in quite discrete terms, they don't really exist yet. You're still trying to find it out. So I think never being okay with the idea that you can't quite describe what you're looking for, never being okay with the idea that you can't quite describe the person that you're selling to or the person that is investing into you. And that can be as specific as saying like, it is literally this person. It is literally, John Smith is investing in me because of these factors. Like, I can describe it, I know who they are. And getting to that point is important. So don't be satisfied with something you can't describe really discreetly. Believe you can solve the problem, don't ignore it. So this is a kind of slightly more positive take on this whole idea. I've noticed that like throughout my entrepreneurial journey, there's been multiple points where I've been like, maybe it'll just work. And the real turning point is first saying, maybe it won't. Actually, maybe kind of means no, like it's not working. What is working? And actually looking at problems, looking at even your successes as problems that you can try and improve. What didn't work in that system is much more powerful than kind of assuming that you're going in the right direction. It's really easy to think like that when we do bad. Like if a client rejects us or an investor rejects us, it's easy to go, well, that didn't work. That was obvious that it didn't work. How can I go and slightly improve it? But when you do make a sale, I mean, let's say you make a sale to a customer and it takes 20 clicks, that is a success. But then you ask the question of, what about the problem of why did it take 20 clicks when I thought it would only take 5? Why did it take this long to onboard somebody when I thought I could do it quicker? Why is it not good enough in that sense? How can I improve it? Approaching things as problems. And like, I always, at any point, pretty much every other day, I'll write down a list of problems I'm trying to solve. Problems might be finding new investors. Problems might be defining why some marketing campaign isn't quite working. The problem might be why the product team being inefficient. The problem might be, why is one of my team members struggling with their mental health? It might be a variety of things, but by phrasing them as problems that we can then go and solve, we put ourselves in a much better position to get there, to get something out of it. And so I guess, to summarize, the maybe means no. If we assume that maybes mean no, then we can build contingency. We're never satisfied with just accepting a maybe. 2, if you can't describe it, it doesn't exist. If you can't identify the thing you're talking about specifically, then it doesn't exist yet. And you need to build better clarity in what that is. And then finally, believe you can solve the problem, don't ignore it. So looking at the problem and working ways around it, whether that's in tiny, tiny chunks or in big steps, how can you start to solve a problem and taking it in your stride? So the next thing that this leads on to is that data doesn't lie. And this is something that I think is very complicated in the startup world. I've noticed from when I first started, people were always talking about vanity metrics, how are you proving how many users you have, how long they stay. And I never really judged what metrics I was valuing. I had a vision and an idea and a hypothesis, but was I measuring the metrics that made sense for what I was trying to judge? Was I judging my success and my failure based on the right metrics? I think this leads exactly on this idea of maybe, or this idea of finding those problems and not accepting things being not clear enough is a lot about what metrics are you using to define it, what data are you using to define it. That data might be your customer reviews. That data might be actually nothing to do with your company. It might be to do with looking at data within the economy. A lot of what I'm building, even at Underpin now, there are companies that are validating parts of our proposition that we haven't been able to validate yet because we're too young. And we're using that data as validation in the same way that we're using data of companies that are not working to show why they're not working, excuse me. So first, solving a problem is about iterating towards success. So progress, any sort of progress, any sort of movement forward is all a form of iteration. So whenever you are building a company, if you start to think about your company as a constant iteration with a kind of North Star, something that you're aiming at, rather than on like some linear journey towards something, you're able to understand how to be more agile and also more resilient to failure because, we iterated in this direction and it didn't quite work, so we're now iterating in this direction. It allows you to be much more agile and much more resilient at the same time by thinking about the whole process as a series of iterations. Every time something changes, it wasn't that you failed at doing that, it's that you found out that that version of it doesn't work as well. So that's the kind of step one. And the second is there are answers hidden in the data. The answer is hidden in the data. You just have to know where to look. And this is going, okay, so if we're constantly iterating on our plans, if we're constantly building something one step at a time, then we need to know where we are looking for the data because the answer will be there somewhere. If we release a new feature and lots of people flood to using it, it doesn't necessarily mean that the other feature is bad. It just means there's something about this feature that gets people to use it. So really looking at data beyond the idea of what is kind of immediately in front of you, what is immediately available. How can we use each iteration to find out something new? And if you learn where to look inside companies, this can be like an incredibly powerful tool in progressing forwards. And it might sound like that's quite a broad thing. There's nothing too specific there to lock onto. But actually, I think that often the case is there isn't something too specific. And often when you are talking about building a company and looking at the data within the company, it'll be very personal. And people on the outside will often tell you to look at specific types of data. Like I said, like people always look at user numbers, average user session length, how much it costs to acquire a user. They may not be the important bit of data for you at this point in time. As long as you are measuring things and you're measuring those things towards success and iterating on that data, then that can be just as powerful. And resilience to being wrong will drive you to the right answer. So this is the idea of when you're iterating, you are probably wrong more often than you're right. I know that like in Underpin, we're on maybe the 25th iteration of our technology, the 25th like major update to our technology. And probably 20 of them were not like it. 20 of them, we made some mistake or we found out something that didn't quite work. And we learned a lot more from the things that we did wrong than things that we did right. And I think this is a lesson that people kind of talk about a lot. Everybody always says, you learn from your failures, not your successes. But there's something more kind of acute than that. You actually learn, even within your successes, even when things do go well, you learn more from the bits of it that didn't work than you do from the success itself. Iterating is about constantly hunting for those errors, those things that don't quite work well and improving them. And you may end up finding out something quite substantial. Agility is about people, not products. So this, again, it's exactly the same kind of line of thought in that you don't want to think about this linear path of building something, but rather about how and in what way you get there. If you're constantly iterating and you're not on this kind of linear path, then the thing that is important is how the people are engaging with this. And that's often why I say like startups are very agile and big corporations are not very agile because it's a small group of people who are all working on lots of different things in the company and everybody does a bit of everything. But ultimately the truth is that like, if you have people who are engaged and people who are looking for these things and people who are interested in the product and where it is going, they're much more efficient at creating change and progress than you can ever be with the wrong kinds of people. The people are the most important thing in a startup. They're the thing people invest in. They're the thing people care about because your product doesn't exist for a long period of time. And even when you start to become successful, your product is just the current iteration. It's the people behind it that are driving it forward or driving it to new spaces. When you talk to somebody about, the next stage of your company, you're not saying, well, the product is going in this direction. You're saying we're taking it in this direction. And always remembering that it's the focus that is on the people. That is the way, focusing on the people is the way in which you will progress faster and more successfully. And the points I've put here, having the right people around you is better than having the right idea. I know lots of companies whose idea was like significantly worse than ideas that succeeded around them. The big difference being that they had the people to push the change forward. People invest in people. Again, I said this, people do invest in people. When people invested in Underpin in the early days, they didn't say, you know, I really like this idea in this market and this product makes sense. They said, I think this market makes sense, but I think you're the person who's going to deliver this. I believe that you are the right person for this job. And I think that that is like more important than having the right idea. Understanding that it's the people behind it that are going to push it in this iterative format. Shifting your focus can revolutionize your business. So this is another big thing that is totally focused on people, which is when you are iterating through your product development, when you are iterating through your company's development in marketing or whatever it is, pointing people in a different direction can have a massive, massive impact. A specific example is, so we've recently been building a feature set to help freelancers find work more efficiently. And we've been looking at how to help them generate their own leads rather than going to recruitment platforms. And all it took was me taking the whole product team and stopping everybody focusing on what they were focusing on, and everybody looking at one tiny, tiny minute issue, which no one could really work out. And what we found was all of these people having their focus on an individual issue, actually we realized that it was the biggest issue in our whole platform, and that by changing it, we could make substantial differences, which improved some of our metrics by as much as 5 times. I think that people forget that individuals within their companies are often focused on a very narrow view. And by extending that view and focusing them on a wider periphery, even if that is just moving them to something else for a period of time, makes a massive difference to how your business is built. People within your business always have far more insight about your business than you think they do. And finally, pivot is a nasty word. I think the word pivot is often used as something kind of negative, that people have been unsuccessful and they've had to change, particularly in times of trouble. You know, when crisis hits and people have to change their businesses. And I think that that's a really horrible way of thinking about it. Like, we shouldn't think of it as pivoting from something to something else in some sort of major shift. It should be much more about shifting focus in order to identify what's kind of more reasonable and what's a better route. Shifting your focus is like picking a sweeter fruit. Somebody says this to me once and it really stuck in my head. They described walking down a country lane and picking raspberries that were all really sour, and then seeing a berry and picking it once and realizing that it was really sweet. And they were like, you would be an idiot to continue eating the raspberries when you know that this other berry is much sweeter. And I think that it really resonates with me, because the next example they gave was about a big company that was 100% sure this was their customer. And then they had somebody else approach them about a completely different type of work. And they turned to look at them and started looking at how their product fit and realized that this is a better model for our business. You know, it's not what I envisioned, it's not what I had planned, but it is better. And I think that shouldn't be seen as a failure. That should be seen as a formative iteration, and that you allowed to happen because of what you had already built. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid to change. Like, that is something that's really important. That when I first started my entrepreneurial journey, was very stubborn that like, I wanted to build this and this is what it should be. You know, it doesn't need to change. I'm right. This is the right thing. And the further I got, the more I'd be like, well, actually, I'd almost rather be wrong, because then I'm going to learn something I can move in another direction. And the more I was wrong, the more things did well, because the more I admitted that I was wrong, and the more that I admitted that I had made mistakes, or the more that I admitted something wasn't working, the more I focused on how I could change that. Shifting your focus isn't being wrong. It's identifying something that's not working, or identifying something that was wrong and actually being right about it, or improving your kind of outlook on it. And I think that's something that has probably guided me through almost all of my entrepreneurial journey, which is just that every time I've been wrong, or every time that something has not worked, I haven't thought about shifting my focus as a kind of failure or being wrong, but rather the next step in this constant iteration. And by thinking about it in these quite small terms of constantly where you are and where you're going, makes it much easier to navigate through that system. So to finish, I wanted to just say, if you take away one thing from my from my garbled speech, it is that looking to be wrong is always better than assuming you are right. And this is something I have seen continuously throughout my entrepreneurial journey as being a guiding light of successful entrepreneurs, which is that those who continuously look to find out why they're wrong and challenge themselves and never assume things are working or that they will work out are the ones that are successful. There's a famous saying in investment, which is that until the money is in your bank, it's not, you know, you don't have an investment. And that's probably not exactly the same. But the point being that until it is there, it doesn't necessarily exist. But if you're constantly looking to be wrong, you're constantly looking for that no, you're constantly looking to find out if your hypothesis worked, and waiting for it to be wrong, then you're much more likely to be successful than if you assume you're on the right path and keep kind of wading through, as it were. Anyway, thank you very much. That's my almost exactly 20 minutes. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Albert. That was so great. I never really thought about maybe being a no. I think I always took maybe as, oh, you know, when you're a child and your mum's like, maybe, you're always like, yeah, I think she's going to say yes. But realistically, when you look at it from a business point of view and a more mature point of view, you're right. Like, if it's a maybe, you haven't got a yes, so you shouldn't take that as like a guaranteed, oh, well, we've got this sorted, don't worry.
I was actually talking to a mum recently who said, who literally said, if I say maybe to my kid, it means no. I was like, oh, you are cruel.
So true. It's so true looking back, but maybe I was just a really positive child. Whenever my mum said maybe, in my head I was like, oh, I can definitely wear her down and get that into a yes. But no, that was really, really good. Really, really great insight there. We've spoken before on a webinar, and we do quite a lot of work with you guys at Underpin, so I know. But has this year, and obviously with the crisis and everything, been like a massive eye opener to you, or do you think you personally, like you said, it's all about the people, not necessarily the product? Do you personally think you were quite a realist, anyways?
Interestingly, like our products, all of our major metrics increased by about 5 times within 2 months of the lockdown. And a lot of people were saying, well, yeah, that's because everybody's going freelancing and there's loads more online eyeballs because everybody's at home and everybody's looking for kind of how do I get a bit more successful, or things are quite difficult. And that definitely was a factor because we did have to put out a lot of support to our community. But another big part of it was it was a big kick up the arse in that the investor community, like, now is a difficult time to raise money, right? We've just announced we're raising another 1.5 million, but that's because like now is a difficult time to raise money. So our investors said to us, like, you need to work on the assumption no one's going to give you any money for like a year at least. You need to work on the assumption that you've got to be absolutely like ruthless with what you're spending on and ruthlessly efficient. And it forced us to go in and go like, what isn't working very well? Like, what are we just continuing to do because we do it? And we cut back our costs by like 30% and improved every metric by like 5 times. So like our business transformed in the course of like 2 months because we were like, for the first time, we had to be a bit more ruthless about what is actually working, what is actually not working. And so we tested everything and really looked for what was wrong and what wasn't working, and looked to how we could improve it. And now we're starting to build back up our spending, but the spending we're building back up is significantly more efficient. So yeah, I think it did very much change my outlook and very much change my view. But I think it was more kind of a further kick in the direction I was headed rather than a kind of a complete turnaround, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And as I was saying on our last webinar where you spoke, did a keynote again for us, you were saying how you just raised investment and you'd hit your goal. And we were like, oh my gosh, congratulations, this is amazing. And you're like, it is amazing, but it was the worst case scenario. And I was like,
it was the worst case scenario because we launched our crowdfunding campaign and then a week into our crowdfunding, lockdown hit, and we lost immediately, like, overnight, about £400,000 in investment. And we were aiming for about £500,000 and we smashed it. We got 92% in the first week, and then we got the £500,000 over the campaign. And everybody was celebrating and everybody was saying how amazing it was with us. Like, one of the most difficult things, like, yeah, but we were going to get £900,000 and we were going to push above that. And then we were going to do a private raise after. So like, it was a big success and it had gone well, but actually it wasn't necessarily what we wanted to do at the time. And then in the subsequent months, we focused completely on like, how do we refine the business as much as humanly possible? And it's led us to now we're raising £1.5 million in a really difficult climate. And people are like, not throwing their money at us, but like, people are coming to us to invest in us because of what we've been able to do in the last few months.
Yeah, you're in a good position. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to be as well. Like, our business is definitely lucky to be one that was more appropriately kind of geared towards the current climate.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Albert, for this.
My absolute pleasure.
There's been a few, there's no actual questions, but there's been a few comments. So people obviously have been really engaged. So I will pop all your details in our post-event mailer tomorrow so people can get in touch with you and carry on the conversation further if they want to.
Always happy to speak to people if they reach out. I always try and make at least an hour or 2 a week to reply to people. Cool. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Albert. It's been a pleasure. Well, that was an amazing start to the Hustle Awards Virtual. Now, let me please introduce you to this year's winners. We have 3 of the 5 that were able to come. So I want to introduce you to our best UK startup, Tractable, and we have Norval. I also want to introduce you to our founder of the year, Tamzin from Uptree, and finally we have Sergio from Choco for Peace, our social impact hero. Hello guys, how are you all? Well,
Hi.
I'll start one by one. Norval, how are you?
All good, except dying in the heat. I don't know if anyone knows, it's been quite hot. No one's
Apparently it's not been hot all across the UK, so I feel a bit guilty now for all the people that are not getting this mini heat wave, but yes, it is a bit unbearable. Tamzin, thank you so much for joining us. How are you this evening?
Yeah, great, thanks. Really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And I think we have Sergio on. Sergio, are you there? Maybe?
Yes, hello, how are you?
Hello, good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me over here. Great intro, and obviously it's a pleasure to be sharing this moment with these other hustle winners and very inspiring efforts what I'm seeing. So pleasure to share the room with you.
Amazing, thank you so much, Sergio. So, Norval, let's start with you. Congratulations on winning Best UK Startup. What an incredible award. Can you tell us, first of all, a little bit about Tractable for people that may not know what you guys do? And then how does it feel to be named Best UK Startup?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, it's funny that, I mean, you're quite right in that people haven't necessarily heard of Tractable. We were kind of under the radar for the first maybe 4 years of the company's existence. So Tractable, we help the world recover from accidents and disasters, and we do this with AI. About 5 years ago, computer vision got to a state where computers could actually understand what's in an image as well as a human. And the founders, I'm going to take credit for a lot of other people's work, but I should emphasize that it wasn't me responsible for the hard tech bits. But the founders basically took this technology and they said, okay, where can we apply this to that makes the most difference and like that has an amazing commercial case? They looked at a few things and they ended up on, you can see the background behind me, they ended up on cars with the reason that cars get damaged all the time. There's loads of them. And what you need to train an AI is photos. And the first thing an insurance company does when a car gets damaged is they take loads of photos of it. So you have this kind of like perfect marriage between a data set and also a massive use case. So if we fast forward to where we are now, so our tech can understand car damage at the level of a human assessor. So if you were to, if your insurer in the UK today was the GS, and you crash your car, which I did a week before I started at Tractable. So you can call your insurer, and instead of them maybe taking a week to send somebody to look at it or for it to then get taken to the body shop, you can take photos on your phone. Those get processed by our AI. And while you're on that very first phone call, the insurance claim can be almost completely finished. The next steps can be processed, and the insurer can decide, okay, we're going to fix your car, we're going to repair this, we're going to replace that, and can take all those steps there and then based on the decisions made from the AI. We are 140 people now, including an office of 15 in Tokyo. We've got about 10 in New York. We've raised 55 million from New York VC, from North American VCs. And so, yeah, the last year has been really, really incredible because, I mean, obviously the global situation has been very interesting, but one big thing about our technology is that it actually accelerates all these difficult processes because you can do them remotely, right? And obviously that's hugely valuable to everybody right now, and very, very useful. In terms of the award, it was a real shock when I got your email, I must admit. It was just like, oh, great, people are, you know, I think it's maybe, this is almost our coming out party in terms of like, I think that in the UK people, well, and wider, are beginning to pay attention to, okay, so there's companies in this space that are going spaces. And, you know, we ran the piece today, of course, in Startups magazine. But I mean, I think the other thing, I think really about this technology and what this recognition means is that AI is a very difficult thing to apply to the real world and actually make a difference. It kind of has this magic wand feel, but like, does it actually, you know, do we actually feel the impact of it on our lives day to day? I think with what Tractable's doing today, people are seeing it in their lives. This isn't technology that's going to make a difference in 5 years. Like, it's being used by big insurers around the world now. And I think that's kind of what my feeling is, that this is what awards like this represent, is like, yeah, acknowledgement that this is, you know, tech that's making a difference today.
Definitely. And you guys, I believe the company was like founded and began in 2014.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 2014.
So it's not been that long. I mean, 6 years, it may sound a lot, but you've come so far. Like, speaking to you, speaking to Alex, you know, we featured you at the Cloud Expo show, in the magazine. Your journey is incredible, and it's amazing to see that obviously other people can see the work that you've done. I mean, you were chosen. I'm obviously a big fan, but I didn't choose you as the winner. You've been chosen by someone else. So yeah, obviously people can see the work that you're doing. And as a tech startup magazine, you're taking AI, one of the biggest technologies in the world, and using it for good, and very successfully. Like, I believe last time I spoke to Alex, he said like no one else has really done this with the technology yet, and people are starting to, but you're definitely ahead of the game. How does that feel?
I mean, it's amazing working for a company like that. And you know, obviously, Anna, you've spoken to Alex, but so Alex's CEO is still, I think, 28, has been the CEO of the company since it started. So he started this when he was, I guess, 22, 23, straight out of uni. And like, so, you know, it's a very, very hard thing to do. And it's a very, very hard thing to do, to actually, you know, then walk into major insurance companies as what would be a 24, 25-year-old and say, we've got this tech that's going to change the world, and actually get people to buy into that. So, I mean, that is, I think, the really interesting thing about, you know, the personalities involved. I mean, Raz, who's the CTO, is also under 30. So to actually be able to kind of like take this technology that's never been applied to this area, apply it, and then have success is phenomenal, really. And I'm very excited just to be a small part of that ride.
Definitely. I mean, the work that Alex kind of said he was doing was incredible. I could sit here and talk to you all night, Norval. The Tractable was actually in our last issue of Startups Magazine, the finance and fintech one. So guys, if you want to find out more, check out that magazine. I'm conscious of time, so let me now move on to our founder of the year, Tamzin Dewhurst of Uptree. How are you this evening?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. Congratulations on Founder of the Year. I mean, an amazing award, but like, must be something quite personal, because it's not just a startup, it's you. Like, you are amazing. How did it feel to win?
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet. Yeah, it was definitely a shock as well, finding that out, and obviously it's really lovely to have that recognition for the last 5 years of hard work. And yeah, so thank you so much. It's really, really appreciated. It felt great.
No problem. Very well deserved. So again, for people that may not necessarily be familiar with Uptree, can you just tell us a bit about what you guys do, a little bit about your journey yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so hi everyone. Really nice to meet you all this evening. Yeah, as you may know, I'm the founder of a company called Uptree, and I founded Uptree 5 years ago. It's a careers network for young people. So it's like a professional network for young people and for employers. And I guess kind of my background before founding Uptree was teaching in a school. So I taught secondary education for 5 years as well. I taught in kind of inner city schools in London. I did something called Teach First. And essentially when I was teaching, met loads of bright young people that were really, really capable, but with schools and kind of like the way that they are wasn't really focused much around careers advice and careers education. So I just saw like this massive gap in the market in terms of young people having access to careers, but whilst they're still in education, and also access to work experience. So what Uptree was kind of founded to like solve this issue around careers education and access to opportunities for young people whilst they're still in education. So yeah, we work with like partner schools across the UK. We've got 350 partner schools. We work with large corporates, so from kind of like the JP Morgans and big investment banks to big engineering firms and corporate companies that want to work with us to help support that pipeline of future talent from a younger age and like raise awareness of their brand. We run loads of really cool work experience days with them throughout the year at their companies. At the moment, obviously with COVID, like everything is online, so we're doing a lot of Zoom calls, interactive Zoom meetings with lots of young people, which is really, really fun. And yeah, that's kind of what we do really. We've got a network of 25,000 young people on our platform, and we're just developing more kind of online learning around careers education, really.
Amazing. And you've done so much in so little time. Again, like listening to your founder's journey is incredible. Again, like another amazing idea behind the startup itself. But as a founder, obviously there's so many challenges. We've spoken about some personally. How, as a startup founder, how do you find the best way to overcome them are, and what have some of the biggest challenges that you faced been?
I think there's lots of challenges, but I think going back to the talk earlier, you know, that's where probably like the most of my learning has been. And I'd say, so that's kind of like it's kind of like the success comes from that as well. So like all the failures that I did have, especially for the first 3 years was quite difficult. Like trying to raise money as a single female founder for 3 years and not really being successful in that. So, but for some reason, like finding a way out of it, like continuing with the plan. We raised money 2 years ago, and since then or 2.5 years ago, and we've kind of been on a journey of having that financial backing, helping build our team, but also bringing on partners to help fund everything that we're doing has just accelerated us. So rather than being like, I think what was difficult at the beginning was being like a one-woman band, trying to do everything and like not kind of being able to let go, like fear of letting go. And I think that's a lot of, for female founders, it can be quite a big deal. Like not knowing, kind of not wanting to take a risk to like, so to kind of hand over bits of business or try and scale up different elements of the team of what we were doing. I guess raising money was really, really difficult. But after kind of keeping to trying, meeting different people, trying different approaches, we kind of got over that. And once I had one investor on board 2.5 years ago, that kind of, I guess, his sort of belief in the business and like what we were doing, obviously being kind of a mission-driven business as well with a purpose, like that led to other investors kind of being like, oh, okay, if he believes in like what she's doing with Uptree, like maybe it is a good idea. And that now we have a kind of like 15 different investors working with us, but also thinking potentially about like later rounds as well. But we're in a lucky position that because I did a lot of that like running around, and at the time I felt like it was complete failure, and I was like also pregnant and basically just running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out everything myself. I guess it's kind of made it kind of easier to scale in a sense, because a lot of the processes, like I'd done a lot of that early iteration. It's easier to do it. You can make decisions, you know, so quickly if it's just you or 3 people to do it with. And now we're a team of 15. Obviously, like that's like kind of a bit more complicated. It takes longer, but we're still kind of small enough to operate quite in an agile way. So the talk at the beginning was really interesting. Actually, really relate to a lot of what was said there. So that's really good.
Amazing. And like you say, we at Startups Magazine do a whole issue on women in tech and female founders, because sometimes it is more challenging for a female, and also a lot of startups co-found, so they kind of have each other. You did it on your own, you're a female, you know, got over all those hurdles, you pushed down all them boundaries, and you've really succeeded. So it's amazing to see. Would you have any advice for any young budding female entrepreneurs out there?
Don't do it. No, I'm joking. Just I think like building a network is really great. It's something that really helped me, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it on my own, I'll be fine. But actually, after like a few years, having that kind of external network that I could ask questions and get advice from, and that was really helpful. Kind of like having mentors and things like that to speak to, and just helped with sort of offload some of the decision making as well. I think just like your team is so important. I completely like rely on my team. They're amazing, and they do a lot of like they completely drive the organization now as well. So building the right people has been kind of another challenge, but also we've like figured it out. And I think the people in the team is really important, who you bring on board. And I think just taking the time to really think about who the early people in the organization are would be one bit of advice. I was definitely like really trusting of everybody, and I just believed everything that everyone said. And actually, you know, I think yeah, it's really important in the early days, especially to like get it right straight, like with the team that you're building around, that ultimately going to help you drive the business to be a success or not. So yeah, that would be a bit of advice I would give.
Amazing. Well, thank you, and I'm excited to keep following your journey and see where it takes you next.
Thank you so much.
Thank you and congratulations. And last but certainly not least of our winners, Sergio, welcome to the Hustle Awards. We are talking to you from overseas today. Congratulations on your victory on your win for the Social Impact Hero Award. What a great category to win. How are you and how does it feel?
Hi, Anne. Well, it does feel like a victory, and I think that that's a great advice. It's you need to celebrate each victory, because definitely takes a lot of commitment from different parties. So my background is not as cool as yours, but yeah, just to let you know, my name is Sergio. I am an international political economist of nature, born and raised in Colombia, but feeling a global citizen, living abroad in so many continents for most of my life. And let me just begin by asking some of the people here, how many of you like chocolate? I know, Anna, you like chocolate. We had this conversation, right? And you know, surprisingly, is I can bet that 9 out of 10 people like chocolate in this call. And you know, some new studies demonstrate that the 10th person is a liar. And I see that Kathy loves chocolate, so Kathy, we love you too. But you know what? Something that is actually more serious is that most of us believe that dignity is a human right. And unfortunately, the chocolate industry is directly linked with the lack of dignity, and it does manifest with negative impacts such as child slavery, human trafficking, deforestation, and in other cases, cocaine production, such as is the Colombian case, which has drove a civil war for over 50 years. And so we are actually trying to flip that coin around and use chocolate to make peace. So that's where the name comes from, Choco for Peace. And essentially, we focus working with war victims and ex-cocaine producers who now cultivate cocoa. We support them with access to markets. We support them with access to tipping point technology, as well as finance. We actually have a partnership with a chocolate factory in Colombia that is led by women, using cacao from these regions, and producing a chocolate that it is more than anything, it is a messenger. So we essentially believe that chocolate and disruptive technology allow us to mobilize resources and tools to these cocoa producers, so they actually step away from being just peasants and actually can be transformed into agriculture entrepreneurs that can treat their land as a business. And as many of us entrepreneurs, and at this moment in COVID, we realize how privileged we are with technology. We are able to get into webinars, we're able to do transactions, we're able to deal with our bank without having to leave our house. And we continue to have key information that allow us to make the right decisions. So unfortunately, this is not the case typically in the agriculture sector. And so what we did, we're using blockchain technology to actually mobilize an operation system and a smartphone that has been designed specifically for cacao producers, cocoa producers, so they can have access to tipping point applications, So giving them the connectivity, I don't know if you can realize this, but people in the jungle don't have as good connectivity as us, in the cities, and they don't have access to, finance, insurance, or any other services that allow them to, succeed as entrepreneurs. So with that in mind, we are extremely happy to be working with them. Right now, things are very complicated, as you can imagine. The actual pandemic affects the most people that are marginalized, as I mentioned. So it is definitely a challenge, but it is also a way to demonstrate that we need to create solutions that are not just solving a problem right now, but mostly that lays the ground so we can actually be more efficient in the future. Such as technology, digitalization, it is the most fundamental thing that we need to move forward. So having this award, it is a great way for us to to transmit the message. We work in post-conflict regions. We work with the UN, with governments. So it is definitely a pleasure that we can actually send this message to consumers and investors that your power of consumption, your power of investment can lead to peace building and can lead to reduction of poverty and climate actions. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. And again, congratulations. Congratulations, Sergio. Congratulations, Tamzin. Congratulations, Norval and the teams. Again, congratulations, winners. I'm going to move on to our judges now. I just have to quickly mention that obviously there were 2 other winners that couldn't make it here today. So we have Joanna Montgomery of Little Riot, who won the biggest 2020 and chosen by Sangeeta from Pink Beach, and Chris Turner of Breathe Tech, who won Best Technology Product, who was chosen by one of our lovely judges on the panel this evening, Mark Patrick from Mauser. So let me now introduce you to our screens, Mark and UP from Career Collective. How are you all this evening? UP, let's start with you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. It's a fantastic event, thank you.
No,
wonderful.
Thank you. So for our audience that may not know, tell us a little bit about you and Career Collective and what you do.
So Career Collective is essentially a recruitment platform for the investment industry. And we also do lots of training to create inclusion within workplaces. So training and strategy, etc.
Amazing.
Everything people and inclusion.
It's amazing, and we've done some work with you before, so it's a pleasure to have you back on our screens, and thank you so much for being a judge. I know you actually were the judge for the Best UK Startup, so Norval and Tractable. What made you pick them?
So I actually did know of them because they're an EF company. And my husband's from also an EF founder, so that's maybe why. But I did know of them, and it was really hard because the shortlist was incredible. There were some brilliant ideas that really could change, but it was the fact that what they'd already created, they were essentially creating a market. It was so innovative, and then also that it can be applied to much bigger problems. I see it kind of like helping with space and with kind of larger industrial issues. So for me, it was that they'd obviously have proved their point, they've proved their market, they've significantly raised the amount. And actually also because of my, I guess, inclusion lens, the team is so diverse. And that is definitely one of the things I was looking at. And that's what I love. They've grown at speed, which obviously tends to happen once you're at that kind of level of investment in the business. But they seem to have created a really balanced and diverse business. So yeah, very, very worthy winners.
Definitely. And if you could just quickly sum up like what makes one of the best startups in the UK, what do you look for in a great startup?
I think it's all of that, right? So it's proof of concept, it's ability that, you have to create a market, then people have to want to buy the product, right? So everybody has amazing ideas. For me, it's all about the people. Like we said, I think everybody was saying that people is everything. So I always say talent is capital, because without the talent, you don't have no capital. So that's kind of what it comes down to. So it's how well you first have an idea and then it executes, and then you're able to, I guess, create that market and continually develop and develop. And it seems like they are going to just grow and grow and grow. So yeah, fantastic.
Definitely. Thank you, UP, and thank you again so much for being a judge. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you on. Mark Patrick, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you.
Great to be here.
Thank you for being here, and thank you again for being a judge. For people that may not know, could you just tell us a little bit about Mouser and what you guys do?
Yeah, so Mouser is a distributor of electronic components. These are the bits and pieces that entrepreneurs and tech companies use to develop, the products that they're working on. So, and our role in that is we work closely with the world's manufacturers, I guess, of those products to bring their newest products to market. So we enable access to that technology for people working on these really fantastic ideas. And actually, sitting here listening to everybody, it just amazes me every time I'm involved in something like this, or some technology accelerator lab or anything like that. The ideas that people bring forward, absolutely phenomenal. And of course, there have been some great things said tonight about the value of people, and also the listening to Sergio, the impact of what his project has done is just absolutely fantastic. So I'm amazed, really, sitting here listening to it all. So thanks again, Anna, for the opportunity to participate.
No, thank you for being a part. I mean, it's such an amazing industry to be involved in. Like you say, you find out something amazing and you hear about some incredible products and people and ideas. So it is. Brief Tech was your... Sorry, did I freeze? Am I back?
You did.
Sorry. So Brief Tech was your winner, the best technology product. And David Turney, the co-founder and managing partner of category, said, as a tech enthusiast, a London resident, a runner, cyclist, and father of 2 small children, Breed's product in understanding real-time pollution levels. We can all make informed decisions wherever we are. The product also looks great. I've pre-ordered one and look forward to finding it.
I wish I'd heard all of that. I guess what you're asking is what why Breathe Tech, because there were some fantastic entries from many different areas. Are you hearing me okay? No, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Yes, basically what I was saying was the reason you chose Breed Tech, the sponsor category, Avery Law, basically was pleased at your choice because he was a cyclist, a runner, and a father, and so the product really appealed to him because it was understanding pollution levels that he wasn't necessarily aware of, and it helped them make informed decisions. So the tech was amazing. What was it that made you pick Breathe Tech, was my question.
Well, there's some of that. I looked at, because I was presented with 5 different entrants, let's say, and they came from many different areas: medical, wearables, electric vehicles even. That was also a very good one, a team in India. Air quality monitoring was Chris, of course, with Breathe Tech, and IoT. But for me, I think I try and think about what's the human impact, what's the technological advances that are being developed, what's the achievement versus team size and investment. And Chris for me embodied what I think of as a real innovator, a real entrepreneur. So he was a one-man band. He'd identified this problem. He was experiencing it himself. So, he's created something there which outside is standalone as a product, could be beneficial to millions of people, giving them information with which to make choices. And it's also very scalable, because if you had a little more functionality to it, my background is engineering, so I look at this and think, okay, well, if we add some data capacity to this and we add GPS to this, suddenly we've got real-time crowdsourced air quality data. So you imagine millions of these things deployed across a country or region, then you really can start to give people data about what's happening around them in their environment, and then they can make choices. So it isn't going to change the pollution in London, should we say, overnight, and it needs a number of things to do that, but it's part of the solution. So the fact that he recognised it is a one-man entrepreneur. I thought, for me, he embodies the spirit of innovation, and what a fantastic idea.
Definitely. And just quickly before everyone wants to leave and celebrate, what you a lot of
You're gonna have to try again. What?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
About.
Okay. Yeah. My question is you come across so many businesses and technologies. What makes a good technology product today?
I think it's first of all, I think somebody said this earlier. You've got to identify a problem that needs solving, because so many people could have ideas that, on the face of it, they feel are good ideas. I think Albert said, it's okay to question whether you're right or wrong. So they've got to be able to identify a problem that needs solving, and then I guess look around at the information that's available to see what's the solution that could help me solve this. And suddenly things that you perhaps didn't expect to help you solve a problem will. And I think the Tractable application is a great example of this. Wow, we can use data, we can use AI, image recognition, to look at a vehicle and solve this problem that perhaps people didn't even realize existed, or improve the process, let's say. So I'm thinking about it like that. What's the problem that they've identified? Is it a real problem? And how have they explored and deployed the technology to solve it? Yes. Thanks, Anna.